Yo, YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy, Abezy. We are back with another video, guys. And today, man, what in the world? We're talking about the 10 most underrated Call of Duty pros heading into Black Ops Cold War, kind of in the midst of roster mania when these announcements are starting to come out. We're talking about which guys, the public, the people, you out there, myself included, are underestimating and underrating heading into Call of Duty Cold War. So without further ado, let's get into number 10. Let's go. So at number 10, there were tons of options, and we're gonna talk about some of the honorable mentions at the end of the video because there's just so many guys that you could potentially mention here. But at number 10, we're gonna go with the one and only Kenny Kuavo, the legend himself. I wasn't sure if he qualified as underrated necessarily after his COD Champs performance, but we all know how good Kenny was in World War II, one of the best players in the game, 4v4, an absolute monster on the sticks. And you head into Black Ops 4, where he struggled at the beginning of the year, but as the year went along, 100T and Kenny found their rhythm, and he was nasty. And then, of course, OpTic started off so slow this year in Modern Warfare. Then they moved to Texas for Champs. Texas Kenny is in full effect, and he starts going off. Kenny is an absolute tank on the map, and people have to give him the respect he deserves. He is number 10 on the most underrated player. So at number 9, another guy who I was happy to see perform at Champs, but throughout this year was underrated and kind of dismissed, is the English legend himself, Zero. The 2017 IW Stage 1 playoff MVP. Zero has been a fantastic player for years now, and after he got out of the tough situation that was New York, heading to London, he really started finding his groove at Champs and was an absolute monster on the sticks. Heading back into 4v4, I fully expect Zero to be nasty and be a threat to absolutely everyone on the map. At number 8, we've got one of the most perennially underrated players, and that's Attach. I mean, realistically, I understand why. I mean, he had a tough go of it last year in BO4, not as an individual, but with the circumstances he was surrounded in. Of course, Faze struggled, missed the Pro League, that team broke up, then he went to Evil Geniuses, had a weird kind of team there of guys who were definitely a mixed bag team of players. They didn't necessarily fit the greatest, but they performed well at Champs. And Attach hasn't been in an opportunity for him to shine in a minute. But when it comes to a player who brings value to his team, who gels teams together, who can create winning teams, Attach is definitely on that list. Year over year seems to not get the respect he deserves in that regard. I think, you know, if this rumored Rokkr roster ends up happening, they are going to be a team to watch out for this year. It's going to be interesting to say the least. At number 7, we're heading back overseas. We've got the Irish superstar Jerd. Obviously, Modern Warfare was not his game. The situation didn't work out well for him at all this year. Tough go with London as a whole. But last year on Splice, he was a very valuable asset to that team. They were really competitive. CWL Fort Worth, they played really, really well. And you go back and look at Jerd's success in the past, and he's a fantastic player. In World War II and IW, again, 4v4, those Splice teams were so close so many times with so many second place finishes. Jerd was one of the forefronts for why they were so good, and I fully expect Jerd to be a monster in Black Ops Cold War. Jerd is a beast, definitely underrated. At number 6, this man seems to still be a little bit underrated at this point, especially with how roster mania is going for him. I know there's a lot more factors involved than just his talent, but Temp is at number 6. I mean, the man is, when he has the controller in his hands, he is nasty, and we saw it at moments this year in Modern Warfare. Of course, this year wasn't necessarily his game compared to years past, especially Black Ops 4. He was nuts all year long, and talent-wise, Temp is right there with the best of them. He just needs to figure out how to mesh with certain guys a little bit better, maybe figure out how to deliver criticism in a little bit more positive light, and I'm sure he will find himself on some very winning teams in the future. But, you know, even this year, even in the year where he wasn't playing well, he was still putting up the stats and had a fantastic statistical year as a flex. Temp is a fantastic player and somehow is still underrated, even though he dominated in Black Ops 4. At number 5, it seems impossible that he could be underrated at this point, but because he found the bench this year, with how talented he's been in the past, it still seems like he's a little bit underrated by the community, which seems impossible. But Gunless is at number 5. This dude has been literally one of the best players in the game for a long time. Again, he has some issues with how he deals with criticism and feedback and how he communicates with his team. He can be a little bit heavy-handed sometimes. You know, he's not for everybody, but when he finds that right team, if this year he can find himself on like the Seattle or the OpTic squads, I think Gunless is going to show off and show out in 4v4 Oh my word. I think Gunless is going to be an absolute problem for people on the map this year. And his effect on the map is still very underrated with how he affects teams, with how he can build winning teams is very underrated. Gunless is a monster. Number 5. At number 4 is a guy who definitely struggled this year. There was times when people wanted him to get benched. There was times when the people thought he is costing. And, you know, at times he was potentially this year because he was giving up on the game. His mind wasn't in the right place in Modern Warfare. So I can understand why he's underrated heading into Black Ops 4. TJ Alley is an absolute stud. Even dating back to his dominance in AW, then he had to take some time off, played a little bit in IW, then played in World War II, was part of Rise Nation during their dominant run, then headed to OpTic Gaming, won their first event of the year, and then maybe he got a little lackluster. He got a little bit easy, took his foot off the pedal just a little bit, but I fully expect Tej to come back grinding this year with 4v4 back. I think Tej is going to be a beast. OpTic Gaming is going to be a problem. And overall, I think Tej is extremely underrated and definitely is a talented player, especially when his head's in the right spot. And maybe splitting up Dashy and him might be the best thing that could happen moving forward. Tej is going to be a beast. At number 3, we have a guy who was a little bit overshadowed because of the dominant players that were on his team as well. You know, he would run the AR, he would be the route man for this team because that's all he really needed to do to be dominant. And that's Major Maniac. Another piece of this potential Minnesota Rokkr squad that maybe by the time this video comes out, we'll know that that's actually the squad. I think we all forgot how good Major Maniac was in BO4 paired with Envoy. Again, Envoy was the slayer on that Gen G squad, but Major Maniac was right there with them, playing fantastic all year long. I am really excited to see what Major Maniac can do in a position with the potential team that he's going to be on this year, heading into Minnesota. I fully expect him to be a really, really good player. And all year long, he did exactly what he needed to do for Faze to be a beast. He stayed alive. He maintained map control. He fought for spawns. The dude did everything he needed to do and more this season for Faze. And moving forward, I expect Major Maniac to be an extremely good player in a 4v4 meta. He is absolutely underrated. Major Maniac is nice with it. At number 2 is one of the best players in Black Ops 4 last year. This man's a monster, and we got to go across the seas once again. It's Dylan. I think we all saw this one coming because Dylan, again, it's weird because it feels like people are writing off his BO4 breakout season as like fluky just because of recency bias, when realistically it's this year that was more fluky than before. I mean, think about it. We saw in moments this year the flashes that Dylan can provide in S&D. At certain moments in respawns, he would just suddenly start going off. That comes with the clarity of the game. I think as things slow down a little bit into the 4v4, Dylan is going to have full control of this map, be prepared for gunfights, and absolutely fry in a Black Ops game. Dylan is nasty. Dylan's a monster, and Dylan is going to be a valuable piece for whatever team he ends up on next year. Hopefully on a starting lineup. It looks like that might be the London Royal Ravens, but we'll see. I hope it is because he deserves to be in the league because he is a slayer of the slayers on the sticks, especially in a Black Ops game. He is at number 2. So at number 1, it took me a little bit of time to figure out who I wanted to put there, but after thinking about it all and kind of going back and looking at some footage from this year and focusing in, even though this guy is definitely seen as a very good player in Black Ops Cold War, I think this guy could end up being one of the best players, if not the best player in the game. He has a massive impact in S&D. He was a rookie this season and a Call of Duty champion. ILLeY is the most underrated player in the league, even after COD champs, which I think is a little crazy. I mean, throughout the year, we saw the growth of ILLeY, and I was a little bit skeptical at first. I'm like, I'm not sure, man. He's pretty nice in S&D, but I'm not sure how it's going to develop. But then we started seeing those flashes. We saw that moment on St. Petro where he just took over. We saw a few moments in Respawn where you're like, oh my word, ILLeY is nasty. And that started getting better and better over time. And again, man, heading into 4v4, he's only going to be more valuable in S&D. And then in Respawn, it's going to make it easier for him to play up to speed and then take over the speed. ILLeY is going to be insane at Black Ops Cold War, and I think people are sleeping on him heading into this next season of the CDL. My word. So there's the top 10. Obviously, we got a handful of honorable mentions that I wanted to at least like quickly mention because they definitely are at least a little bit underrated. Those are guys like Priestahh, Apathy, Kleenex, Cammy. I would even throw John in there because he's been gone for so long. Like, who knows where John could be at this point, but he might be underrated as well. And then maybe even like Brezzy, you know, technically on a roster last year, was really good in BO4 and then just didn't get a shot this year. I think he's slept on as well. There's a lot of guys I think are being slept on this year heading into Black Ops Cold War. And I could have talked a lot more about a lot more guys, but we're gonna have to leave it there for now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you guys really enjoyed. I always do appreciate that. It does mean a lot to me. All the support goes a long ways. You guys are legends. But as always, guys, I'm your boy, Faze, and we will see you next time. I'm out.